This is MTG Burgeoning, and in this video we are going to update and upgrade our Kozilek the Great Distortion Colorless EDH deck. Thank you for joining us for another installment of the Up and Up series. Today it's Kozilek the Great Distortion. In the description of this video you will find links to this build's deck tech, the up-to-the-minute deck list, as well as a link to this build's video primer series. We have 4 cards going in and 4 cards coming out, so let's kick things off right away with edition number 1, and that is a snow-covered wastes. That is all. We have wastes. Now we have a snow-covered waste. With that going in, guess what's coming out? That's right, a regular wastes. That's just going to help us have a little more, I don't know, variability with our land base. Eventually, once a copy becomes available, Field of the Dead will be jammed into the 99 of this build. But that bad boy has not been reprinted. It is quite an expensive card, so we're just going to wait until a copy becomes available, or it eventually gets reprinted. When either of those two things happens, we're going to put that card into the 99 of this build. Card number 2 going in. It's not going to be as quick as swapping out a wastes for a snow-covered waste, that's for sure. Card number 2, ooh, look at that, it is Kozilek's Command. Here we have a Kindred Instant Eldrazi, and it's cost with a mana value of X and 2 colorless mana. We get to choose 2 of the following 4 modes. Target player creates X01 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens, which of course we can sacrifice to add 1 colorless mana. Target player scries X and then draws a card. We exile target creature with mana value X or less, or exile up to X target cards from graveyards. This spell is an enormous boon for colorless decks everywhere. Look at what we get to do by just investing colorless mana into this spell. We get to create creature tokens that can be used for mana. We get to, I'm sorry. Sorry about that, excuse me. We get to scry and get some card advantage off the top of our library. We can exile any creature as long as the mana value is X or less, or we can exile X target cards from graveyards. We can add to the battlefield. We get card advantage. We can interact with a creature, and we get removal from graveyards. This is just an amazing card, and this is a slam dunk inclusion into any colorless build. With Kozilek's Command going into the 99, it is going to replace Scour from Existence. Now here we had a very good colorless removal spell for 7 mana. Yes, it's only a common, but it allowed us to exile target permanent. I think we can all agree that the versatility of Kozilek's Command trumps what Scour from Existence can do. Yes, we lose out on the flexibility, I guess we can say, of trying to exile one of our opponent's lands if needed, but do we really ever have to do that? It's very rare that I've ever used this card to exile a target land. If I ever did, it was probably a Gaia's Cradle, and those do not grow on trees. So, for the purposes of versatility and flexibility, the overall variety of things that Kozilek's Command can do versus the one thing that Scour from Existence can do is the reason why it's being forced out of the 99. Alright, next card going in. And also keep in mind, with Kozilek's Command, we pick 2 of those 4 modes. We don't just pick 1. That is going to be a very powerful spell that I cannot wait to start casting. All right, card number 3 going in. It is Echoes of Eternity. Here is another card that I cannot wait to start pairing up with my Eldrazi spells. Oh, baby, is this going to be wonderful. So we have an enchantment here, another Kindred card. This one is Eldrazi, of course, 3 generic and 3 colorless mana. If a triggered ability of a colorless spell we control, or another colorless permanent we control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Whenever we cast a colorless spell, we copy it, and we may choose new targets for the copy. just the things that this card is going to do when it gets onto our side of the battlefield in this type of deck. Seriously, take a moment right now, if you care to check out the full deck list of this build and how many different ways Echoes of Eternity is going to help it out. It is mind-boggling, and investing 6 into an enchantment that has to wait for us to do something in order for it to trigger, in this build, that is not a detriment. We have so much mana ramp in this build, it is sickening. It is absolutely sickening what this card is going to do, and it, just like Kozilek's command, is an absolute slam dunk into the 99 of this build, and let's face it, all colorless builds out there would love to put that card into the 99. It's going in, and it is going to replace Sculpting Steel. Here we have an artifact for 3 generic mana that when it comes into play, we may choose an artifact in play, and if we do, Sculpting Steel becomes a copy of that artifact. Well, let's see. So we're doubling the overall mana investment. This costs 3, and the enchantment of Echoes of Eternity costs a total of 6. What are we getting instead? We're getting more than double of what Sculpting Steel can do. Sculpting Steel is a one-of. It's going to come in and become a copy of an artifact that we choose that's on the battlefield. Echoes of Eternity is going to do so much more. Yes, the investment of mana is more than double, but again, this is a completely colorless build. We have so many mana rocks and so much mana ramp in this build that it's sickening, like I said. And with all of the different spells that we're going to be able to copy, this is going to trump anything that Sculpting Steel was able to do. So we will gladly take the double mana it takes to get Echoes of Eternity onto our side of the battlefield versus Sculpting Steel. And to make it a little bit easier of a transition, this is an artifact where Echoes of Eternity is an enchantment, and artifact removal is a lot more prevalent in EDH than enchantment removal, so it should have greater staying power on the battlefield as opposed to Sculpting Steel. All right, so far 3 swaps. Pretty easy to make each one of those swaps. This next one might take a little bit of outside-the-box thinking to actually fully reconcile what we're trying to do here. But I think over the long run, over the span of the game, it might end up being more in our favor. But I'll let you decide, and of course, gameplay. Card number 4 going in our last one of this video, pardon me, it is Spawn Bed Protector. Here we have an Eldrazi for 7 generic mana. It's a 6/8. At the beginning of our end step, we return up to 1 target Eldrazi creature card from our graveyard to our hand. We also create 2 1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scion creature tokens that we can sacrifice to add a colorless mana. So let's think about this. We should get this onto our side of the battlefield well ahead of curve. It does cost 7 mana, but again, we have so many mana rocks. It stays on the battlefield. Let's say it stays on the battlefield for a few turns. It has a healthy body of 6/8, so it can definitely participate in combat. If we get to multiple end steps, we incur card advantage if we have any fallen Eldrazi in our graveyard. We get them back into our hand. Also notice that those kindred spells over there, the Kozilek's command, the Echoes of Eternity, those count as Eldrazi. Oh, actually, this says Eldrazi creature card. Okay, never mind then. So scratch that. Scratch the Echoes of Eternity and Kozilek's command references. These are just for straight creatures. So we get to incur card advantage by returning Eldrazi creatures from our graveyard to our hand, but we also contribute to the battlefield by putting 2 Scions onto our side of the battlefield that we can sacrifice for colorless mana. So we're getting creatures, we're getting mana, and we're getting cards back into our hand. Yes, the investment is 7, but the body of 6/8 is nothing to be trifled with. So Spawn Bed Protector is going in. That is not the part of this equation that might trouble some viewers out there. The card it's replacing, on the other hand, that's where we may have to start talking a blue streak. With Spawn Bed Protector going in, it is going to replace Solemn Simulacrum. Now, here are the thought processes behind this swap. Excuse me, for anyone that doesn't know what Solemn Simulacrum does, when it ETBs, we search our library for a basic card, a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then we shuffle our library. And when Solemn Simulacrum dies, we may draw a card. Pretty sure we're going to, but it says we may. So the thought process here is, yeah, the investment of mana is higher. We are spending 3 more mana, But look at the overall body comparison. We're going from a 2/2 to a 6/8 by adding 3 extra mana. That is really in our favor for mana invested versus power toughness. Add the power and toughness, that's 4. So we're getting 1 power or toughness per mana spent with Solemn Simulacrum, where with Spawnbed Protector, we're getting 14 power and toughness combined for 7 mana. That's 2 power and or toughness for every 1 mana. So the body fits what Spawnbed Protector does. This comes into play and it gives us a basic land, which we could probably think that we would have on our side of the battlefield for the entire game. It is a basic land. Outside of land destruction, it's going to be on our side of the battlefield. We'll be able to tap it every round of turns whenever we need to use it. Spawnbed Protector is going to give us 2 creatures at the beginning of our end step, which we can sacrifice for colorless mana. Those little Eldrazi, are they Scions or Spawns? Those 1/1 Eldrazi Scions, they're not going to be a force in combat. They could be used for chump blocking, but let's face it, we're going to use them for colorless mana. So we're getting free mana just from those 2 creatures. And if that stays on, Spawnbed Protector stays on the battlefield for, let's say, 3 turns, that provides us 6 total mana across those 3 turns, where the land that Solemn Simulacrum gave us will give us just 3 mana over that same time frame. Lastly, when Solemn Simulacrum dies, we do draw the 1 card. Spawnbed Protector doesn't draw us a card, but it does recur a fallen Eldrazi from our graveyard right back to our hand. Yes, there are a number of Eldrazi that could be in our graveyard that we can use as, as recurred fodder for Spawnbed Protector's ability there. So overall, if we break it down mana per mana, Spawnbed Protector is going to do better in the overall vacuum of a game than Solemn Simulacrum. I'm going to stand by that. I await your comments and your feedback about that swap in the comment section below. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.